What's good? What's good? What's good? Appreciate y'all for hopping on the stream. This is your guy Manny, and this is the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. We got plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about the Trae Young trade. We're going to talk about the NFL playoff games. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. There's just been a lot going on in sports so far. But all these coaching vacancies, just a lot going on. So I'm going to run my intro in just a few moments, and then we're going to get this thing on and popping. I believe with the new setup, my intro is no longer here. Oh, there it is. Running it now. All right, y'all bear with me, man. My allergies is acting crazy, so we're gonna give this thing a go. Planning to stream for an hour, and if we don't make it, we don't make it. But let's go ahead and kick things off with the Trae Young trade. So the Wizards trade for Trae Young, right? They get Trae Young, and then they give up Corey Kispert and CJ McCullough. Now the thing is, when you look at it, people say, "Oh, the Wizards got Trae Young for a steal. They got Trae Young for nothing." Yes, they got Trae Young for nothing, literally. But at the same time, the Hawks were calling everybody. They called everybody. Nobody wanted the contract from Trae Young, because here's what could happen. Trae Young can opt into his contract after this season, and it's about $50 million. So it's a player option. It's his option. So teams are looking at it like, man, look, as much as we love or want Trae Young, we don't want that contract. So you can't fault them. A team like the Wizards with a bunch of rookie contracts, a bunch of expiring contracts. What the only vets really on the Wizards right now is really Middleton. If you want to count in Bagley, who has a decent contract, the deal just made sense for the Wizards. I'm going to pull up the contract situation because I don't think anybody really is getting paid any major money from the Wizards. Used to support this team, and for me, the last straw was after that Bradley Beal trade, getting nothing back in return at the time. Chris Paul, then it went from Chris Paul to Jordan Poole, and we all know how that ended up. So now the Wizards are getting to the point to where I might start supporting this team again. Which with Trae Young is going to unlock guys like Alex Sarr, is going to unlock guys like Trey Johnson. It just bodes well for a team like the Wizards. Y'all bear with me. Pulling up this graphic shortly for the teams, Wizards, because I'm really curious to see if they have anybody else that's getting paid some kind of money that is of worth, right? So we're going to share the screen so you guys can see what I see. For those of you guys that are watching on or listening on the audio version of this, be sure to get on the YouTube as well. Talking Sports with Manny podcast, Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. So you got Bagley, who's 6'10", right? He's making about $2 million a year. You got Malachi Branham, $4 million. So there's really nobody. Koulibaly is getting $7 million a year. Trey Johnson is getting that first round contract of $8 million a year. Chris Middleton, that's the big one, $33 million per year. His contract should be coming to an end soon, if not this year, next year. Like, I don't think he has much left on his contract. This screen here doesn't give me too much. Then, of course, you have Will Riley. Then you have Alex Sarr, who's getting $11 million a year. Cam Whitmore, which I don't understand why Cam Whitmore isn't playing. Then you have Trae Young, who has $46 million. So outside of Trae Young, 46, and then Middleton, 33, nobody else is really getting paid major money. This is just a bunch of rookie contracts, a bunch of friendly rookie deals, and I love what Keyshawn George brings to the table. So this roster is built young, and then they could potentially have a top 3 to top 5 pick next year, top 8 protected, fingers crossed. So that's what we're thinking happens. But one more thing I wanted to hit on before I talk football is to look at the depth chart from the Wizards. All right. So we have Trae Young, obviously, who's not going to play for a while. He might not play this season, but either way, he's in play for next. I think the biggest thing was getting Trae Young and him having that player option. I don't see him opting out. If anything, he opts in, then they trade him again to get some kind of assets back. That's just kind of how it goes. So you have Trae Young, right? You have Bub Carrington. Then you have Kayshawn George. You have Trey Johnson. You have Belil Coulibaly. You have Justin Champagnie. Shout out to the Champagnie brothers, man. Like, these dudes can ball. And I'm going to click on him in a minute because I don't even remember how the Wizards got him. Then, of course, you got Chris Middleton. You have Will Riley, who barely plays. Alex Sarr, Marvin Bagley. So the roster as a whole is pretty solid. I love it. You have AJ Johnson. You have Maliki. You have, Tristan Vucevic. So you have so many of these young guys that the Wizards have that once they start to put it together, it's going to be great for them. So this guy, he was most likely undrafted. It's saying fourth season. I don't think he got drafted. He did go to Pitt. Just looking at Champagnie. So, yeah, he's just kind of bounced around from team to team, from Toronto to Boston, and ends up in Washington. This is his third season in Washington. And he's really made a name for himself, man. Really made a name for himself. I love what he brings to the table. He can shoot it a little bit. He can score. His rebounding is very underrated at 5.5 rebounds per game. And then on top of that, he's a big wing. He's 6'6", 6'7". So that's kind of like what I know. I just said it's 6'7", 6'7". I know the kids are going to be going crazy. But yeah, that's just what it is. So enough with the sharing of the screen. We're going to go ahead and dive right into football. So we had several games over this past weekend, and every game, to me, honestly, was solid. It was solid games. Even the games that were out of hand were still solid. So I was at a kid's birthday party on Saturday, and, the Rams were playing the Panthers, and I'm thinking, okay, that's the game that I can miss. That's the game I don't really care about. It's going to be a blowout. It's going to be Rams by 17 points. Everybody was predicted. And then it ended up being a close game. The Rams won the game 34-31. It wasn't the prettiest of games for a guy like Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford, man, just shows that he's just so experienced. Like, I was so proud of what the Panthers did, a team coming in with a losing record, 8-9, winning their division because ATL won in week 18, to then propel these guys into the playoffs. And they come into the playoffs, and then they play with all they had. Bryce Young, 264 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Chuba Hubbard ran pretty tough, 13 carries for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't know why Rico Dowdle only got 5 carries, but hey, that's either here nor there. Jalen Coker balled out, man. This guy is going to be a massive, massive threat for this team. He had 12 targets. He had 9 receptions, 134 yards. Receiving and a touchdown. And this guy right here, man, he's a beast, man. Jalen Coker, a middle round draft from Holy Cross. Somebody was saying, man, these guys have their own version of Mike Evans and Godwin. You have Coker, you have Tet, you have Leggett, and all these guys are 6'3" to 6'5". They went and got some bigger wide receivers for a guy like Bryce Young. You have Tommy Tremble. I do believe that they can upgrade in that tight end, but Jatavian Sanders did not play. So that's another big piece, another weapon for the Panthers. But yeah, the Panthers, man, they gave it all they had. Defense did enough. They did enough. Like, say whatever you want to say. Defense did enough. Of course, they could have gotten more sacks. They could have gotten more turnovers. But this was a performance that we were not expecting. Now we go on over to the other side, right? You have the Rams, you have Stafford. After Jalen Coker scores a touchdown, the Panthers take that lead. These guys were able to drive the opposite way and win the game pretty much at the end, pretty much on the buzzer, pretty much. And Matthew Stafford has been here. He's a champion. To me, I felt the Rams were possibly the best team in the NFC with their experience and their talent, and having a guy like Matthew Stafford who's done it. This team right here is as good as it comes. 304 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum had a nice little tandem where the Rams ran for 116 yards rushing as a group. Puka Nacua did have a rushing TD, but Puka also had 18 targets for 10 receptions for 111 yards. And as I watched this game from a kid's birthday party, I kept saying to myself, why is Puka Nacua not getting targets? I come back and I look at the box score, and I'm like, man, this guy had 18 targets for 10 receptions, 111 yards receiving in the touchdown. Devontae Adams, 13 targets, 5 for 72. These two dudes are going to be a problem all season. Here you have two guys who had well over 30 targets. It's crazy. Well over 30 targets. 31 targets to be exact to these two wide receivers. They're going to be a problem. Higbee pitched in. Then you have like the Kobe Parkinsons of the world that caught a touchdown. You have Kyron who caught a touchdown. You have Blake Corum doing some pretty nice things to kind of balance that offensive attack. The Rams are going to be solid. They're going to be one of those teams that is going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out. And we're also going to highlight the games coming up. So, yeah, shout out to the Rams winning this game. And then that was the first game. And I'm like, man, this is the first game of the playoffs. This is wild, right? Then you go on to the next game. You're thinking there's no way the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears game was going to be good. You know, if you get a good game early, especially from the Rams and Panthers that nobody was really counting on, then you get this next game, the nightcapper. You know, you're at Chicago. Soldier Field is going crazy. You got all the blue jerseys in the crowd. I mean, this was a legendary game. This is a game that went down. This is like for ages. Like this game here was everything because Green Bay led into the third quarter. It was like 21-3, right? 21-3. All they had to do was just keep on pushing. And Chicago goes on to score 25 points in the fourth quarter to cap off a crazy, one of the wildest, craziest comebacks you'll ever see in sports. Being down 18 points and being able to come back. And we're going to go ahead and dive into what went right, what went wrong. What went right? You had Green Bay passing attack. It was magnificent. Jordan Love, 24 for 46 passing. He had 323 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no INTs. He was only sacked one time. The run game struggled. Okay, Josh Jacobs, 19 carries for 55 yards. He struggled, averaging 2.9 yards per carry. That running game struggled tremendously. But then you go over to the other side with the receiving work. Romeo Doubs was targeted 11 times. He caught 8 for 124 and a touchdown. If this guy's a free agent, he's going to command some big-time money. Matthew Golden, welcome to the NFL. He finally did some pretty good things out there. 5 targets for 4 receptions, 84 yards and a score. You have Jaden Reed, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 43 yards and a score. You have Christian Watson, 7 targets, 3 receptions, and 36 yards and a score. So this is a game where Green Bay featured their young wide receivers that they drafted. They drafted all these guys. And I believe the Romeo Doubs was probably drafted in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. So 4th round, you're back in 2020. 2022. And just they drafted all these guys. And it's just one of those things where I still feel like Green Bay needs that alpha wide receiver because it just varies. Like, you know, Tucker Kraft not playing, obviously that's a huge part of what they like to do. Luke Musgrave is decent, but just not as good as Kraft. And some thought Musgrave was going to be better than Kraft. And that's me. Some people are me. But yeah, this game featured, 4 wide receivers, the top 4 wide receivers catching the pass. And I do feel like they're going to shake up this wide receiver room next year, especially if Romeo Doubs, I believe, and he's a free agent. So I don't see how they're going to repay. I mean, I just don't see how they pay Romeo Doubs. I just don't see it. With all the talent that they have in that wide receiver room and then not really having a true number one. When you look at Romeo, he's been solid, anywhere from 600 to 700 each year, anywhere from 4 to 8 touchdowns each year. So Romeo Doubs has been solid, but I don't think he's a guy that they keep. But yeah, this was a game that Green Bay had. They had this game in the bag. All they had to do was finish. They started out hot. They couldn't finish. We flipped to the other side. Caleb Williams, man, had arguably maybe one of his best games of his career. Like, I mean, these guys have come back so many times in the regular season that this has become normal. It becomes normal. Maybe the Bears should have a lead and then a team come back and take the lead because when these guys are losing, they play their best. Like, it's like their game is elevated. Caleb Williams, 361 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. He wasn't accurate. He didn't complete a lot of his passes. But at the end of the day, he made those plays when they needed plays. DeAndre Swift ran efficiently, 13 carries for 54 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Then the receiving work, man, you have a tight end in Colson Loveland, who's going to be a star. 15 targets, caught 8 for 137. I think that was a rookie record. DJ Moore just continues to do DJ Moore type things. Another walk-off touchdown at the end, 6 for 64 and a score. Romadunze pitched in, and then they just kind of, had guys like Luther Burden and all these other people step in. But it was an impressive win from the Chicago Bears, a game that I thought, oh, man, these guys are getting blasted. Ben Johnson is losing. And then they just come back and they win. It's like, I guess it's their identity. One thing I can say about these guys is that they get a lot of they create a lot of turnovers. They create a lot of turnovers. Jordan Love fumbled. Like, these guys fumbled a lot. I think Green Bay fumbled a total of 4 times. They only lost 1, which is impressive in its own right. So these guys are taught to go after the ball, punch the ball out. But a guy that had so many pressures after the QB was Montez Sweat. He was literally like one of the best performers for these guys. He was after the QB. I think he had three QB hits, a pass defense. He had pressure after pressure after pressure. See, sacks don't normally just tell the whole tale, right? You had a guy in Montez Sweat, big name guy. They go ahead and sign this guy. He's been arguably the leader of this defense. You can say, oh, he didn't have the sack numbers that he's accustomed to having this past year. But the guy is just he is phenomenal. And I'm sorry, I made a mistake. He did have the sacks that he's accustomed to having. I think I had it confused with 2024. 2024, he had 5.5 sacks. This year, he had 10 sacks. So another double-digit sack. The year when he split with Washington in 2023, he had 6.5 with Washington, 6 with the Bears, and ended up with 12.5. So 12.5, then 5.5, and then 10. But still, again, the sacks don't really tell the stories. The stats don't really tell. Sometimes it's more so of like an impact, right? That a player puts in. So yeah, man, shout out to the Bears. They move on to the next round, and I was just shocked. I mean, so that's another good game. So that was Saturday night. Now we move on to Sunday afternoon or Sunday. In just in a nutshell, and the first game of the day was the Bills versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this was a game that could have gone either way. Honestly, I thought that the Jags were going to win because the Jags are second in takeaways after the Bears. These guys know how to take away the ball. Like, that's just what they do. They just get they create a lot of turnovers. But in their own, in their own demise, Trevor Lawrence had 2 interceptions. First one was at the end. It didn't really matter. But 207 passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Travis Etienne was running well. And it's crazy that they went away from the run game. Etienne ran well. Bayshaw Tootin ran well. Trevor Lawrence ran well. I still felt they should have ran the ball more. But, it is what it is. Parker Washington, who's going to get paid when it's time for him to get paid. He had 7 for 107. 1 touchdown. Etienne had a receiving touchdown. So did Brian Thomas Jr., who has underwhelmed this season. But overall, I feel like the Jags played a solid game. Then you go to Buffalo, who they don't really have the pass catchers that other teams would have. They don't have a Parker Washington on this team. You can say Khalil Shakir, yeah. He had 12 targets, caught 12 receptions for 82 yards. And outside of Shakir, it's just Band-Aids, right? You have Brandon Cooks, 3 for 58. Then you have Gabe Vincent, who got hurt. And then they have another one of their receivers that just got hurt. I think it's Terrell Shivers. So you have 2 guys that you just lost to with ACL injuries. So now Buffalo's scrambling. Excuse me. So you guys, I was working through this allergy, but they're talking about signing Odell Beckham Jr. or reaching out, at least making a call at least. So you're depleted. You have Kincaid hurt. So you're going to need Dawson Knox in the next game. You're going to need a lot of Keon Coleman, a lot of Brandon Cooks. But this just goes to just show you how great of a player Josh Allen is to go ahead and get 273 passing yards from this poor receiving group and have a touchdown. So it's just interesting to see how they work. And then the big part of their game, the run game, James Cook was bottled up, 15 carries for 46 yards. So that wasn't going for him. So it was just a game where Buffalo just kind of just willed themselves into this win. It was one of those games, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, very entertaining. It just seems like the last team to get the ball is going to score and win. And then that crucial play where they needed a first down, it was like 4th and 1. And then Josh Allen went for the sneak, and then the offensive line picked him up and just kept running with them. And they got to the goal line or close to it. I think he scored on that play. And ended up having 2 rushing TDs. It was just a testament of who Buffalo is. That's their identity. That's what they do. So another great game on Sunday to keep this thing kind of going. The next game was the San Francisco versus the Eagles game, right? Are we going to get a 4th good game? Is it possible that we get 4 good games to start? Well, we did. We got another good game. San Francisco winning 23-19. Jalen Hurts, 168 yards passing, 20 for 35, 1 TD. He was sacked 1 time. Saquon Barkley played well. Excuse me. Barkley played well. Excuse me. Don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this podcast, but y'all bear with me. So Saquon played well, 26 carries for 106 yards. And this is the Saquon. This is Saquon that we knew and loved coming off of last year. Devonta Smith, 8 for 70. The biggest thing was A.J. Brown was targeted 7 times, caught 3, and he had some crucial drops. At least one that I remember. Excuse me. We're going to try to make it. Y'all. So, yeah, their offense, Philadelphia's offense was not clicking. They couldn't really move. They couldn't really move the ball. And defensively, there were some things that they did well. I mean, they shut down Christian McCaffrey from running, 15 for 48. And then Brock Purdy looked good for the most part. He did have 2 INTs. The Eagles do have superior defense, superior corners. But one thing that I loved about the 49ers was their grit. They've been to Super Bowls before. They haven't won, but they've been there. So if anything, Shanahan knows how to get there. Demarcus Robinson came out early, 6 receptions for 111 yards receiving and set the tone. Who saw that coming? Who saw it coming? I know I didn't. Then you have Christian McCaffrey, who had 6 for 66 and 2 touchdowns. Magnificent, excellent, great performer, steps up in the big stages. That's just what Christian McCaffrey does. And then Jauan Jennings with an extra touchdown. My Lord, excuse me, y'all. Christian McCaffrey and Jauan Jennings with an extra passing TD to CMC. So just overall, great performance, great scheme. They lost George Kittle, who's a huge part of what they like to do. So I don't know what they look like going into next week. 49ers defense, for the most part, contained the Eagles. They did pretty well. Solid performance. Again, in my opinion, another pretty good game. And they pull it off, and they advance. You know, it's not like this was such a crazy matchup or one team had an upper hand over the other team. No, both teams were solid. You know, you have the 49ers who had a 12-5 record. They could have won their division. They didn't. You have the Eagles who had a 11-6 record. And if it was because of my Commanders beating them on the last week of the season, if that's what forced this matchup, thank you, Commanders. Good job, Eagles. So we'll move on to the last game of Sunday night, and that was it was a bad one. It was a bad one. It was close, but it was a boring one. If you like points, this was not a game for you. It was Drake May, New England, versus the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert just can't win the big games. He just can't win in the playoffs for whatever the reason is. 159 yards passing, 19 for 31. They ran the ball poorly. It was really Justin Herbert really helping those rushing numbers. And somebody had a stat. They said, whichever one of these quarterbacks that runs for the most yards is pretty much going to win the game. And Drake May ran 10 times for 66 compared to Justin Herbert's 10 times for 57. Ended up being the difference. Drake May did step up when it mattered late in the fourth quarter, where he threw a pass to Hunter Henry. He ended up with 268 yards passing and 1 touchdown, 1 INT. He was sacked 5 times, but he still stepped up when he needed to step up. Ramondre Stevenson was huge this game, not only running 10 times for 53 yards, but also 4 targets, 3 receptions, 75 yards, taking those checkdowns and making it into long gains. Kayshon Boutte stepped up. Hunter Henry, just a collection of receivers. This receiving core reminds me just a little bit of what the Bills have in terms of receivers. If you remove Stephon Diggs out of this group, it's pretty much the Bills receiving core. So Drake May is just doing some good things with the receiving core that he has. TreVeyon Henderson was nowhere to be found. First rookie, first of this rookie's playoff game. Omarion Hampton only had like 1 carry, so he was sorely missed. Lamb McConkey, Oronde Gaston, Keenan Allen, just a collection of these receivers just didn't step up. They just couldn't get separation. Christian Gonzalez played lights out defense. Even when he got hurt, they were like, man, get this guy back out there. Both teams got to the quarterback fairly well. The Chargers had 5 sacks compared to 6 sacks from the Patriots. Patriots ultimately win the game 16-3. And the Chargers have to literally go look at themselves and say, hey, why was it that we were only able to score 3 points? Got some soul searching to do. Now we go on to the last game of the week, which was Monday night, which was last night. I kind of waited for this podcast today instead of doing it yesterday. And it was a game where the Texans dominated, okay? CJ Stroud was accurate in terms of throwing the ball, but at the same time, it's like this offense struggled at times. They ran the ball extremely well, Houston did. Nick Chubb, 10 carries for 48 yards. And then Woody Marks, 19 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. Big ups for the 4th-round rookie. Altogether, Houston ran for 164 yards rushing. CJ Stroud pitched in with 250 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. It was just kind of just how it happened for them. Like, Christian Kirk had an amazing game. When I say amazing game, this guy was targeted 9 times. He caught 8 for 144 and a touchdown. If there's a guy that I can say a playoff hero award, Christian Kirk gets the playoff hero award this week. Like, he was that guy. CJ Stroud fumbled the ball 5 times. 5 times. He lost 2. The team was able to recover the other 3. But to fumble 5 times is insane. Like, defense scoring, 2 touchdowns. Outside of that, like, Houston could not score. They could not score. It was a close game all the way till the 3rd quarter. It was 7-6. Then in that 4th quarter, obviously, a couple of defensive scores there and some field goals, things of that nature, and then it just kind of blew the game open. But this Houston's defense is magnificent to hold, Pittsburgh to just 6 points. Not that Pittsburgh has some kind of high power octane passing attack. Rodgers struggled 146 yards passing. It seemed like they had some things going in the run game early on with some big, nice little chunk of runs from Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Kind of slowed down. We saw DK Metcalf move the ball. Had Pittsburgh scored a touchdown on their first drive, does that change the outcome of this game? Possibly. But it was like that momentum just shrunk up. Outside of that, DK Metcalf didn't really do much in the second half. Freiermuth tried. I mean, it was just like every pass catcher was just trying. Rodgers was, he fumbled twice. He lost 1. It was just a great game of just pass rush and defense. If you love pass rush, if you love good defensive game, this is what it was until it wasn't. The Houston Texans, to me, have the best defense out of all the teams right now in the playoffs. And things are going to get interesting going into the next round. You're going to have the Broncos playing the Bills, right? Then you're going to have the Seahawks playing the 49ers. Both of these games are going to be on Saturday. because the number one seed gained that advantage, you want to go ahead and have these 6 seeds play right away. It's just to their advantage. They don't get that extra day of rest. Then, of course, you have the 2 seed the Patriots versus the 5 seed Texans versus, and then on the other side, NFC, you have the Bears 2 seed versus the Rams 5th seed. So those games are going to be on Sunday. So 4 potentially exciting games. Broncos and Bills could go either way. I understand that the Bills don't have the kind of defense that the Broncos have, but the best player is Josh Allen. You know, he's going to have a tough defense to go against. If that run game and James Cook can play well, Bills can make it very interesting for the Broncos. But the Broncos, obviously, being at home, having a pretty good defense, not as good as the Texans, in my opinion. Then you have, the Patriots, who do play solid defense. Then you have the Texans. This could go either way. I don't trust C.J. Stroud and that Houston offense. If that Houston offense can produce somewhat of anything, that can get really, really interesting. And then you have the Seahawks versus the 49ers. 49ers have shown, look, they can play with anybody. And given the opportunity to play this team for the 3rd time, I would figure that Shanahan could tweak some things to make some things interesting. I won't be surprised if Seahawks won or if the 49ers won. That's going to be an interesting game. Now, a game that's going to be pretty good that I think the Rams could win is that Rams versus Bears. Is going to be crazy. Obviously, playing in the cold does bode well for the Bears, but Stafford has been used to the cold with his days in the Lions, and we're going to see if the Rams can step up to that challenge. Caleb Williams will really have to show a huge level of growth here in order to get to that next round. Just imagine if the 5 and 6 wins in both. If the 5 and 6 matchups win in both sides, you can have a potential where the Rams are hosting an NFC championship game versus the 49ers. And then you can have a potential where the Texans are hosting a AFC championship game versus the Bills. So that's real interesting there, but we're going to see how this goes. I'm not saying that the number 1 seeds and the number 2 seeds lose this week, but I don't see all 1 and 2s winning. There's going to be some upsets this week. What do you guys think? Who do you guys think wins between the Broncos and the Bills? Who do you guys think win between the Patriots and the Texans, and then the Seahawks and the 49ers, or the Bears and the Rams? So that's what's going on. And then right outside of that, right outside of losing yesterday, Mike Tomlin steps down. Mike Tomlin steps down as the Steelers coach. And at first I'm like, wait a minute. It doesn't make any sense. Why would he step down? But he knew that his time was coming to an end regardless. So he knew this could be his last season. With all things being said, they lose, and it ends up being his 7th straight playoff loss. That just doesn't cut it for an organization like Pittsburgh. They're one of those teams that make the playoffs every year, and you expect to be getting to AFC championship games. That's what the old glory days of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what they always done. And now you're telling me that this organization. So first of all, John Harbaugh. Is it John or Jim? I always get them mixed up. John Harbaugh gets fired from the Raiders, and then you have Tomlin, who steps down. Both guys came in around the same time, and those 2 guys were like the longest tenured coaches. And it's just crazy that Pittsburgh has only had 3 coaches in the last, three coaches since 1969. That's just crazy. Wouldn't you want your franchise to just have consistent coaches that last double-digit years and just having playoff success, or just having success even in the regular season? Some teams are just cool with just getting to the playoffs, but yeah. So with all these coaching vacancies, the Eagles fired their offensive coordinator. Guys like Cliff Kingsbury, he's just out here interviewing for jobs. Ravens job, the Eagles job is going to be a very hot one. I think that A.J. Brown is gone after this season. They're probably going to move him in the offseason. He was very cancerous to that team. And then he didn't play well. Like, his going out party was just not great. I just don't see another year of A.J. Brown being on the team. And there's going to be some wide receiver shuffling. There's going to be some wide receivers this year that get traded. There's going to be some wide receivers that go to other teams, like Alec Pierce. Is going to command a substantial amount of money. There's going to be some slot type guys like Parker Washington, if he's due for pay, Romeo Doubs. Some of these guys are going to be franchise tagged, but I don't see any major wide receiver getting franchise tagged. I haven't looked at this list in a minute, but there's going to be some movements. You're going to have the Isaiah Likeleys of the world. You're going to have the Kyle Pitts of the world. And then what happens with the head coaching job in the offense for the Falcons. So it's going to be a lot of moving parts. It's going to be a lot of coaches, a lot of musical chairs. You're going to see these coaches that are getting fired or released. They're going to end up on some other team and then be in a cycle again for a head coaching position in the next 2-3 years. That's just what happens. People call these guys bad coaches, and then they go somewhere else and they flourish. Look at Dan Quinn. He started off as a bad coach. Oh, we don't want this guy. You had fans saying we don't want this guy. Then he ends up turning things around in Washington, having a great season. Things go bad because of injury. Now they're cutting several guys off their roster. That's just the nature of the business that we call the NFL. So that's what happens. And it's going to be really, really exciting to see where people land, to kind of see, what happens moving forward. So that's that in the NBA. Outside of the Trae Young trade, you're talking a few deals that could go down. John Morant could be moved. Anthony Davis, potential surgery, being out for a while. I saw him post something on social media saying, "Hey, don't listen to everything that you see. Some things is false news, fake news." And then when you look at the standings, OKC is still very, very good in the NBA, but they're not as unbeatable as they were before. They have picked things up the last 10 games, winning 7 out of the last 3. But they had this rough stretch where they were like 5-5 in a 10-game span. The Lakers continue to fall at 23-14 right now, with Denver not having like 4 to 5 starters on their team, and they're still out here staying afloat, still out here playing better, still out here producing even with less. And then you have teams like the Clippers trying to make a run. You have teams like Memphis looking to trade their guys like John Morant. You have teams like Golden State not really knowing if they're pushing, if they're not. Are they going to trade Jonathan Kuminga? Then you have a team like the Wizards who go ahead and make a move for a guy like Trae Young. And that was like, okay, where do we go from here? Are we going to play Trae? Do we still have our lock to be top protected 8 pick? Or, all these different things. You have New York playing well. You have Boston playing well. Boston, the team that nobody saw being 24-15 at this point in the season, being the 3rd seed, they were the 2nd seed. So Jaylen Brown and that coach has these Boston Celtics playing well. And then there's rumors about Jason Tatum coming back at some point this season to play in February. So that's going to be crazy. So that's all sports and then some. If you guys are watching the replay, please let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you guys are listening on the audio, please subscribe to the Talking Sports with Manny podcast on everywhere you get your podcast. And I'm going to catch you guys on that next episode. We out. Peace.